Hola, hola, feliz jueves. Welcome to Latina Professionals Mental Health Series. You're here with your host, Norma Garcia. Once again, here we are every Thursday at 5 p.m., bringing you hot topics all related to mental health. Um, I'll give a few minutes for you all to be able to jump in. As you are, make sure that you let us know where you're coming from, your industry. And something different that I want to add today is I want you to share what is your favorite thing about being a Latina, a woman of color, any men that are here, what's your favorite thing about being a Latino? Since today we are going to be talking about our Latina identity, I thought it'd be a great way to already start off with just honoring what we're proud of in terms of being a Latina. All right, welcome everybody. For those of you that continue to be tuning in and joining me, welcome back. I always love to see familiar faces. For those of you that are new to this platform, today is your first day showing up. I'm so proud of you that you took the time to be here. Typically, these presentations are about 30 minutes. I'll go into introducing who I am, I'll go into the topic of the week, and then I'll leave some room for Q&A. And so again, for those of you coming in, I see that we already have some people already shouting out where they're from. Don't forget to also include what is your favorite thing about being a Latina. And, for me, being Latina in itself is my superpower, right? There's so much strength and wisdom and beauty in terms of what it means to be a Latina. So I'm excited to bring this topic to life, and where we just really going to talk about our identity and own it and embrace it, and just do it in a way where we come off as authentic and we're prideful in terms of our roots and where we come from. All right, so I'm gonna look over here in the chat for a moment. So for those of you that aren't familiar with where I'm tuning in from, I am from Los Angeles, California, in the West Coast. I always love to see all you mujeres tuning in from all places of the United States, even different countries. I see here we have people from California, hola, hola, Colorado. Let's see, I'm already loving our favorite things: unity, rich in culture, familiar relationships, our work ethic. Somos muy trabajadoras, eso sí. No one does it better than us. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Because of our cultural wealth. Amazing, amazing. Love it. Love, love, love it. So why don't we get started? Continue, in the chat, sharing where you're from. I love, using the chat as a way for you guys also to be able to interact with each other as I'm going through the presentation. Feel free to ask questions, provide your comments. And also, this is a place of support and community where not just myself, but your fellow colegas here can also support each other in terms of sharing your own personal experiences or any suggestions or strategies that you may have. Please use the platform to share with one another. And as we're talking about our Latina identity, right, that's something that makes us even stronger in terms of like uplifting, supporting each other, empowering each other. All right, so let me just switch this to a different format. There we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, today we're going to talk about embracing our Latina identity, a journey of self-discovery. And so before we delve into it, let me introduce more of who I am and my story. So my name again is Norma Garcia. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and life coach. Over the past 10 years, I have worked in supporting BIPOC with the emphasis of the Latino community and providing direct mental health and crisis interventions. My approach is always coming from a place of cultural sensitivity, understanding how culture plays a role in terms of our functioning, a holistic and also a trauma-informed lens. I'm very, very passionate of empowering and supporting high achieving first gen Latinas and women of color in achieving their goals and reaching their full potential and breaking generational trauma and showing up as their authentic self. And a mission of mine is to continue being an advocate and educating on the importance of mental health, of breaking our cycles, and just creating a bigger impact within our community. So that is who I am. And so wanted to just welcome you and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be having a meaningful discussion about, again, embracing our Latina identities, our journey of self-discovery, right? Getting to know and connecting with ourselves. It's an ongoing process. And today we're going to really get to explore the beauty and the challenges and the empowerment that just comes from embracing our Latina heritage. All right, so I'm gonna do something different today in which I'm actually gonna have you all do an exercise of mapping your identity. So if you guys can all please grab a piece of paper, a Post-it, anything that is, next to you, if it is that you do have something accessible to you. If you don't have it right now, you can always do this later, but I do wanna take this time for us to do this exercise in which on that piece of paper, I want you to, we're gonna map out your identity. So on that paper, I want you to put your name on it, of course, and actually your full name. And then in the middle, put a circle, and the circle put my Latina identity, okay? And then stemming from that circle, I want you, to draw lines around it. And in those lines or branches, however it is that you visually want to create it, I want you to start writing what, in terms of your identity, right? In terms of what makes you a Latina, in terms of, this could be anything related, to where you're from, the languages you speak, family traditions, values, culture celebrations, holidays, personal experiences, just different influences that you have in terms of your culture. One thing for sure is that we all, may identify as Latina, right? But in terms of geography, in terms of just traditions, right? We're also very different and unique in our own ways. And so we just really wanted to take this opportunity for all of us to be able to do this exercise, just to, again, really think about and remember, right? What is our Latina identity? And the reason why I wanted to do this exercise, not because I don't think you guys are aware of your identity, right? But sometimes, we forget because we're too busy, because we're working our responsibilities or we're in survival mode, right? That we forget to really honor ourselves. So I thought it would be really impactful if we start with this exercise. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. If you are able to do it, great. If not, you can do it at a separate time. But just an example, I did one for myself, just to kind of give you guys an idea. And even as I was doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, like at the beginning, it was really difficult because I was like, damn, like what does make me a Latina? But the more I thought about it, things kind of came, more naturally. And so this is an example of the mapping identity, right? As I mentioned, my full name. My name is actually Norma Alicia Garcia Garcia. Both of my mom and dad are Garcias. Coincidentally, they're not related. And so I just put different things that I feel identify me. And there's much, much more, right? This is just a few things just to kind of get ideas, right? In terms of, I'm Mexican American. The way that I connect with my roots is that growing up, I used to dance folklorico. And I was also part of Aztec dancing. So for me, dancing has been a way that I've been really able to connect, with my culture. I identify as being trilingual, right? I know English, Spanish, and Spanglish. I am a first-gen daughter of immigrants. Some foods that I feel like I really identify with is pozole, tamales, birria, buñuelos. One holiday that really resonates in my culture is Dia de los Muertos, right? Honoring the dead. And it was also really connected because when I used to dance, that was a holiday, or that was an event that we used to always perform in. So it's really symbolic. So again, an exercise for you guys to just, really identify and start reflecting on your identity, because this is part of your self-discovery. The more that you get to know who you are, but also honor who you are and embrace who you are and be proud of who you are, the more that you can get to really being and living authentically. Um, and so something that I want to bring up too, in terms of like, there's some comments about like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm Latina in love, like no soy de aquí, no soy de allá. So for those of you that are in that kind of like not sure, this would be a perfect exercise for you to start identifying that as well. Alrighty, so let's move on. So then next year, what I want to do is I'm just going to identify different things that you can do to, again, be able to have awareness and embrace and live, right, aligned with your identity. These may be things that, of course, like you already, are familiar, but again, sometimes we forget, or sometimes we don't create the time and the space to be able to connect with that, right? So the first things first is understanding your Latina identity, right? Like what does it mean to you to be a Latina, right? What does it mean to you, right? In terms of like your cultural background, like where you're from, right? After you really understand like how we did with like the mapping, right? Really exploring your cultural heritage, right? Where do you come from, right? Doing research, maybe creating a family tree, or, talking to your abuelitos, tías, tíos, right? And like learning from them, right, about your generations, right? Your past, learning, through storytelling, asking questions, even be able, right, to travel and visit your ancestral country, right? Being able to also, connect with your roots in terms of like customs, traditions, cultures, and for us here is that, as first gens, or, children of immigrants, right? Knowing that, right, connecting with our roots, and also, right, living in the American culture, in which we'll talk a little bit later, in terms of like the duality of that, right? It's how do we maintain our culture and are still assimilating to our society, the society that we live in. And then the family-centric values, right? That we as Latinas, right, we value family. Family is at our core. And I think someone in the chat had put something about like, family union, familiar relationships, right? That we keep things, like within our family, but also our extended family, right, is also at the core. The idea of like that we respect our elders, embracing intersectionality, right? That we are an intersection of gender, of ethnicity, and other identities that we may identify with. And there may be a complexity in terms of all the different identities that we are, but being able to embrace all of that and owning that those are the very same things that make us unique. All right. Next, it would be, navigating, as I was mentioning earlier, our dual identity, right? Balancing the cultural norms of both your heritage and the society you live in, right? Challenges of acculturation, right? Navigating between your traditional values and those of your host culture, right? And so I know for me, this is a big one, right? Where my parents, they immigrated from Mexico. I was born here in the United States, right? And so my challenge has been, right, like how do I, maintain, right, the traditions, the values of my Mexican culture that my parents, I feel, were very fortunate to pass on to me, and even to teach me Spanish. Spanish was my first language, and even be able to still speak the language fluently. That's something that I know has definitely been an asset for me, right? But even then, like navigating, right, even just the shame or the stereotypes or the misconceptions that come, right, of like having a dual identity, and be able to navigate, right, like, wait, like I'm really connected to my Mexican culture, but I am American and I was born here and I have assimilated to some of the American ways, right? And that kind of duality sometimes can clash, right? And it can create, stress, right? And especially in terms of our society, right? What is society saying about us, right? What stereotypes are said about us? As well. So it's really important to navigate that. And sometimes it happens that we can lose our sense of our roots, right? Or our heritage, because of many different reasons, right? Maybe your parents weren't able to teach you the language, or they weren't able to pass on the traditions, or sometimes because of the type of maybe work environments that we're in, right? They kind of shame you or don't honor you or acknowledge you, for who you are. So it's a multi-layered of reasons why this duality does exist. Um, and then also moving into like I was talking about the language and identity, right? Like for us, Spanglish, right? But even if we think about like our ancestors, right? Like the Aztecs, the Mayans, right? Their native languages, right? That language is one of like our strongest identities, right? And be able to communicate and stay true, to the language. And also even, as professionals, right, depending on what environments that we're in, the idea of code switching, right, that we're having to switch our language or say things a certain way, either to be politically correct, or you want to make sure that you follow the same kind of like language that is in your workplace, right? That sometimes that code switching, right, can take us away from authentically owning our identity and speaking our language, right? Empowering through education, right? This is where we talk about, right, the misconceptions and the stereotypes that there are about us, right? And being able to educate ourselves and educate others, right? About our work ethic, about what it means to be Latina, right? Even just the perception as women, right? We are very passionate. We are really, strong, and sometimes that could be interpreted as like, oh, you're Latina, and you're feisty, or like eres muy picosa, right? And it's funny because sometimes like I'll watch TikTok and I'll see these like funny trends about like with the title of like, oh, this is what it's like to date a Latina. And the perception is like, that she's sassy, she's mad. And, so even those like stereotypes, right, are things that we also need to, educate and empower. And although there may be some truth in those things, right, really being able to reframe it in a way that it just means that we're passionate. We do things con amor, we really put our all in it, because everything is about love. And then additional things like making sure that you are taking care of yourself, right? Your wellness, right? That you're building confidence in yourself, you're showing yourself love, that you believe in your potential, right? That you are, talking to yourself and praising yourself in a positive way. That we're also, celebrating our achievements, right? That we need to honor our success, whether they're small or big, that we need to not just honor ourselves, but we also need to honor each other. We need to uplift each other, empower each other, learn from each other's successes, right? And not be each other's competition, because unidas, right, we are so much more powerful. So yeah, so being able to just, be able to really celebrate yourself, right, for the things that you have overcome and the things that you continue to overcome, because we as Latinas, as mujeres, we are resilient. And then lastly here, it's about building a supportive community. So even all of you guys being here, this is already a community, right? A community of you guys showing up, right? Not just to listen to me, but also see who else is in the room, be able to interact with each other, learn from each other, right? Share comments to each other. That in itself is you owning up and embracing your identity, and together as a community, empowering each other and also healing each other, right? Because solas no podemos. So I'm gonna take a moment and just look at some of the chats. I got so into just, talking that I didn't get a chance to look over, but let me see if there's any questions. Uh, there's a big challenge to have to lose our true identity to belong and succeed in society we live in. Absolutely, yes. So I'm here to remind you, right? It's how do we, whether it's find that balance or really truly embrace ourselves, right? Unapologetically, right? Diversity in our culture, the food we share, yes, the music. What else? We need to call out prejudices prior and during civil rights. Yes. Not Latina, but I'm enjoying this content. Happy to be a supporter. Yes. And yeah, although this is tailored for Latinas, right? This is an inclusive space for anyone to join, right? Anyone who is open to learn and be part of this discussion. As a DACA student, it's hard because I'm not Mexican enough anymore to people in Mexico, and I'm certainly not considered American either. Wow, 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 wow. And I think this is just, thank you so much, Wendy. If it's okay with you, I'm going to put it here. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing this, because that really goes back to that dual identity, right? Or even not feeling Latina enough, right? And it's to say, like, who is defining this? Who is saying you're not Latina enough? Granted, I'm sure there are people that have their commentary and their criticisms and whatnot. But what I want you to invite you to do, hopefully you were able to do the identity map, right? And really, whatever it is that you identify yourself, for you to own that, right? That you get to be who you want to be, right? You get to decide how much of a Latina you're gonna be, not based geographically, not based, in terms of culturally, but in terms of what you in your heart truly believe that you are. Okay. So I just want to validate that this is a true common experience that some people go through. I know I've had some clients that are like, well, I don't speak Spanish, right? But I do identify as a Latina. Like my parents are from Mexico, and I still, connect in these ways. But because I don't speak the language, I feel like I'm not Latina enough, right? And so again, I'm just here to tell you that you are all Latinas, and you get to decide, right, that identity. Yes, society can say whatever they want to say, their specific constructs, expectations, stereotypes, right? But the beauty of this is that you as a person, you get to decide who you are and who you want to be, and no one can take that away from you. Let's see. We must empower and lift each other. Juntas, nunca solas. Yes, yes, yes. Love it. Oh my gosh, yes. So with that being said, I also I'm curious to know, right, like if there is anything, because I know I'm not able to touch upon everything, but I'm curious to know, right, like in your experiences, how have you embraced your Latin identity? What are things that you do now that maybe I didn't mention, or something that really resonated with you that you want to share? Like, what are ways that you embrace your Latina identity? So if you guys can share it in the chat, I would love to hear what all of you guys have to say in terms of embracing yourself and doing it with pride. All right, so what are other ways that you embrace your Latina identity? Embracing our Latina power together. Yes, we gotta do this together, right? We can't do this alone. Oh, a proud Yo no Sabo kid. Oh my gosh, that Sabo kids is super trending these days, right? But even then, right, that in itself, like, what is that teaching our kids, right? So let's see. So I see someone put that they cook and how they decorate their home through creative art. Yes. What else? Celebrating Dia de los Muertos and sharing the culture with my friends. Yes. decolonizing and embracing my indigeneity. Yes, love that. And I know that wasn't something that I really touched upon today, but I'm glad that that is being brought up because that is part of, embracing our identity. I bring pupusas to every work lot potluck. Oh my gosh, I wish I was at your work. I would love to have pupusas. Food, music, art, sharing with anyone I know. Yes. So it's not just about us connecting with ourselves and our culture, right? But it's also how we're sharing it with others, right? How we are educating others about who we are, about our culture, about our traditions. And I don't know, but I'm gonna brag and say, like, our Latina culture, right? Everyone loves. And that might be a generalization, but I don't know anyone who doesn't love our culture because, again, we are so powerful in terms of just all the things that we are in terms of our ethnicity, our food, our music, our tradition, everything. I'm proud of my immigration status and being proud of prioritizing my own mental health. Yes, love that. The food I cook, talk about being biracial. Yes. Since I'm light skinned, a lot of people assume I'm just white. Started an employee resource group to educate about our Latino culture. Dancing and teaching my girls how to dance, reminding my kids where I'm originally from, our culture and what we embrace. I work doing my best to connect through volunteer work with the Hispanic Latino community. Being a passionate talker, speaking with energy, yes. So yes, as you can see, right, there are so many different ways, right, that we honor ourselves, right? And there isn't a right or wrong way. It's whatever feels genuinely true, to yourselves. And it's our responsibility, right, as immigrants, as first gen, second gen, whatever generation that we're from, right, to continue to embrace our heritage and for it to continue living, right? It's our responsibility to pass it on to our kids, to the next generation, but also spread it throughout our community, right? So just to end this, being a Latina means embracing the richness of our heritage, right? Connecting with others who share similar experiences as you all did today, right? And continue to contribute to the ever evolving story of the amazing, empowering, right, community that we are. Whew. All right, so that comes to the end of our presentation. Anyone have any questions, comments? There's so much I can say. I can completely go on all night, right? But these are just meant to be a 30-minute, presentations, introducing, talking about, these important discussions. And it just starts here, but these are meant for you to then take on and have these conversations with those around you, whether it's your friends, your families, your coworkers, right? To continue spreading knowledge, awareness, right? About who we are, where we're from, what we represent, and really doing it with pride. So with all that said, I am very proud of all of you guys to show up. All of you in this room, men and women, right? To me, you're all Latinas, right? If that's what you identify with, you own it and you embrace it and you be it. So thank you all for being here. It was such a pleasure to just talk about, our identity and to remind you all, right? And for you all to continue living in your truths and continue being the mujeres poderosas que somos. Alrighty, y'all. You guys all have a great night, and we will see each other next week.